yeah, if people are
Sure.
interested in like sharing
This
it.
meeting is being recorded.
Oh,
There you go.
got it. Got it. Am I able to share my screen?
You should be able to. If you don't have the option, I can just make you a co-host real quick.
It seems to be letting me.
Usually it's worked in the past.
I need it to entire screen share. No. The share button is like not
Here.
letting me for some reason.
I just made you a co-host. Gotta love Zoom, right?
Right. I could just send it to you too. It's really nothing. I don't know why the share button is just like gray. Oh, there we go. I got it. All right. Can you guys see my screen right now?
Yes, we see
Yeah.
all of the people. There we go.
All right. Play from beginning. It's really not anything fancy, guys, but I've been putting this together like kind of as we go because, as you all know, algal blooms are an ongoing issue that's becoming more and more prevalent. This summer was probably one of the worst ones we've had, so it's definitely getting our attention. So here's a quick little update on what we've been doing. I just start the presentation by talking about HABs. I'm sure everyone on here is familiar with what they are and how they're caused, but if you're not super familiar, they're basically caused by excess nutrients getting into the waterway, such as phosphorus and nitrogen through runoff. This picture here is actually a picture I took this summer of our Green Lane Reservoir. Believe it or not, this is what the water looked like. So yeah, there are a lot of farms up there and we have a lot of ongoing projects with them doing different BMPs, trying to restore riparian buffers and all that fun stuff. But we are talking about, I also talk about why we're worried, what's bad about the algae, because there's good algae and there's bad algae. So the harmful algal blooms we're worried about because of the specific cyanobacteria, which can produce cyanotoxins, which obviously we do not want in the water for drinking and for recreation. Some of the cyanobacteria we are actually able to test in-house. So this summer, I've been taking a lot of samples from our reservoirs and from our rivers and just running it through. We have a flow cam at the lab that is able to take pictures of different algae, different cyanobacteria, and identify and count. It's actually super helpful. But this is an example. Here is a picture of a phanazamenon, which is a mouthful, but that's one of the cyanobacteria that's very prevalent in our waterways. And we've also been taking samples for the cyanotoxins once we get to a certain count of the cyanobacteria, because you can have one without the other. So unfortunately, cyanotoxins are a lot more difficult to get analyzed. So we've been sending them out to different labs for these two methods, EPA method 546 and 545. These two give us the broad kind of spectrum of the most important toxins that the EPA and the DP are watching out for. So far, knock on wood, we have found no toxins, so that's good news, but we don't want to count our chickens before they hatch, so we're staying on it, keep monitoring. We're also worried because along with the toxins, we deal with issues at our plant, like taste and odor and filter clogging. That's from the good algae as well as the bad algae. So just in general, we're keeping an eye on the algae count for that reason. Also for environmental impacts, because when there are blooms. We get the dead zones, which can kill a lot of fish, which also contributes to taste and odor. It's all connected. So yeah, it also raises pH, which is something that I just learned myself. I took a sample back here at this area and the pH was 11. So yeah, that's a whole nother issue. This is actually a shout out to DEP. This is me and DEP went out to do some water quality testing on one of our reservoirs. They were helping us because this reservoir in particular has already been claimed as impacted by the farms around it. So we've just been monitoring with them, and they actually have formed a new HAB task force with the Department of Health as well. And this is a new task force, so it's not regulatory at the moment. It's more advisory, but these are some of the numbers that they're working with down here. We have the advisory level of cyanobacteria, and these are the units that they're using when they're counting the colonies. And then avoid contact. So this right here is when you get to the advisory number, and then when you get to this number, they give you different kind of advice on how to handle your waterways, mainly for putting up signage. And then go my next slide. Yeah, so we've been putting up signs at some of our reservoirs like these, just to warn people when we see blooms, just stay out of the water. A lot of our reservoirs are already no swimming, so these are kind of repetitive, but some people are like, oh, I'm just gonna go in the water. Well, at least these signs let you know that if there's a reason you shouldn't be in the water for those people. But yeah, and also what to do, like if your dog gets loose and goes in the water, like rinse him immediately, because people's dogs have been known to get sick going into these blooms. People have known to get rashes. So just educating the public is very important. So specifically this summer, I wanted to talk about the algae trackers that we've had installed as kind of a pilot project. So they're not all over yet, but we have put them at 3 of our intakes to measure. So they measure chlorophyll and phycocyanin, as well as turbidity, water temperature, all that good stuff. So these guys are super easy to use. You just kind of plop them in the water, and they're solar powered, which we love. And they have these little brushes that clean their sensor, so they're very self-sufficient. We installed them in August, so here's some pictures of some of the spots we put them. So these are a couple of our intakes. I don't know how much I can share detail-wise on where they are, but so this we decided to start with the intakes because we just have such a large span of water. We wanted to see what was coming in as an early warning kind of situation. Like if we see an uptake in the phycocyanin or chlorophyll coming into the plant, and then we have a pretty good idea that there's a bloom up ahead, and then I can react and go take samples up above the watershed. So it's kind of like a 2-part system. But so far, so good. This is a screenshot of what their dashboard looks like. They live stream the data, which is awesome. It shows you where your tracker is. It has GPS tracking, which is also great because if I lose it, I can follow it down the river and find it. But yeah, so right here you see the phycocyanin, the chlorophyll, turbidity, temperature, solar light, all that. It even gives you the weather forecast, which is awesome. And so here's a picture of the graphs that it forms, which it also automatically does. And you can mess around with it, and it shows you the trend as well as the detail. I just set it to show you guys, this is the month of September at one of our plants. So you can see almost like a daily kind of dip and up, kind of pattern that they go through, but you can also see the trend of, okay, so it started to go up this week and then it started to go up this week. So we're still learning what the causes are for why these larger trends are happening, but that's why we started this project. So it's definitely a learning process. You also get weather, temperature, and turbidity on here, so that's super helpful. I cut it out, but there's also an option to add certain events to your graph. So if we do a treatment, or if there's a rain event or something, I can add it in here, like bookmarked, so we can go back and see, okay, so it rained and then we saw a huge uptake, so maybe it's responsible for that, certain things like that. And then we can eventually, when we do treatment, we can see how effective it really is. And yeah, so that's detection. And prevention, we are also working on for harmful algal blooms by doing tree plantings, stream bank restabilization, all that good stuff to put barriers in between runoff and the water, just to prevent more nutrients from getting in. Treatment is a work in progress. We are still doing a lot of research. There's a lot of things out there. We're currently working with Princeton Hydro. I don't know if anybody's familiar with them, but we want to do kind of a study on one of our reservoirs and see how that goes with the different treatment options they have. And we'll hopefully find the most effective one, and then I'll be presenting on that next year. And that's all I have. Anybody got questions? Oh, I can't see the screen.
I have a question, Amanda. This is Beth. What are you doing about the pH issues?
Yeah, so the pH is a new thing. So the pH, for some reason, is only high like that in the reservoir. But when it goes through the dam and by the time it gets to the plants, the pH is back to the right number, like back into the range. So it's only in the reservoirs. So we're still trying to figure out, because the reservoirs is where we're going to do our treatments and stuff like that. So hopefully when we do the treatments in the reservoirs, that'll help bring the pH back to its normal level. Honestly, it's a new issue. I've done a lot of research into it, and it seems like no one really has an answer for how to combat that. But we're working on it. We're hoping that once we get the blooms under control, then the pH will return.
Yes, I'm asking because I'm working with the lake at FDR Park, and the pH is 9.5. And we didn't have algal blooms this year, even though in the past they have, and we've been doing a restoration project there. So I was hoping you would have some great information that would help me.
Unfortunately, no. Unfortunately, this summer it hit 11 at our one reservoir, and I talked to a lot of people, and everyone was like, that's crazy, but no one really had an answer for me. So I'm working on it, but hopefully next year when we start doing the treatments, then I'll be able to tell you, like, this worked, this didn't.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much, Amanda. I know you mentioned like there's like brushes on these systems for like anti-fouling and stuff like that, but like, have you found them to be like sufficient, or is it like, yeah, it kind of helps you kind of get by before you kind of have to get in there and do some more maintenance? Like, I guess, how's that been working out so far?
Yeah, so far so good. They're actually very low maintenance. There have been, like, I check on them like weekly just to make sure, because there are a couple like in those tucked away spots that, like, if a log gets in and like kind of beats it up, like, I try to keep the debris away from it. But the brush has been working great. They actually control the brush from their headquarters in Colorado, and they have people assigned to monitor your live stream data. So if they see like I wish I had an example, but One time it, right, one time it spiked up. All of our numbers spiked, and I was like, whoa, what's going on? But before I could even call them, all of a sudden the numbers went back down. And so I called them and they were like, yeah, we saw that. It was probably like a clump got clogged on. So we rebooted and got the brush going, and then it went back down. So they're really helpful. The algae tracker company, they're really awesome. They're very hands-on and very attentive. But they told me that like when you're looking at the graph, if you see a trend up, that's normal. But if it spikes up, then that's not a real measurement. That means something's wrong. And that's when they get an alert on their computer. I can also set alerts on mine. Like if we have like a certain level of chlorophyll that is like too much, I can set that and then I'll get an email. So I don't have to check all the time, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's really great that they have this built into the system like that, and that they're watching them so closely too.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, because they even notified me when we did have one. The trackers themselves have been great, but I had a metal wire that connected one to one of our stations, and it actually rusted and snapped, and that buoy almost went over our dams. But they notified me because they saw it move, and they were like, your buoy is moving. And I went out there and I got it before it went over the dam. So that's good. Yeah.
Now, do those stay out year round?
No, so we'll take them out. I'm actually going to take them out. I would have taken them out this Monday, but since it's been so warm, like you guys said, I'm probably going to take them out next week. And just because of freezing purposes, we don't want them to be out there in the winter.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah, it makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense. Yeah, what's your plan to like recommission them then too? Like what would be your time frame, do you think?
Probably March.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably end of March.
Thanks, Amanda. That was so neat. I'm going to stop the
Yeah.
recording.